There's a moment in every person's life when they realize that sheer effort isn't what moves reality. They try planning, forcing, pushing, but something always slips through their fingers. And deep down, they feel there must be a simpler way, one that doesn't drain their energy, one that actually works. That's when people finally discover what Neville Goddard meant when he said that imagination creates reality, and that feeling is the secret behind every shift that truly lasts. What if the problem was never your desire, but the way you've been relating to it? What if you've been imagining without feeling, like rehearsing a dream without ever stepping into its warmth? The law of assumption isn't about wishing harder. It's about entering the end with such naturalness that your whole inner world rearranges itself to match. And when you do this, when you imagine and feel, the shift is immediate. The mind softens. The body believes. Something quiet inside whispers, it's already done. Most people were taught to wait for signs, wait for proof, wait for the world to change first. But those who dare to live in the end discover that creation is finished, that the wish fulfilled is a state, not a future event. This is where everything starts bending in your favor. This is where life finally meets you where you stand. And today, you're going to understand the one formula that never fails, a formula so simple that most overlook it, and yet powerful enough to reshape your entire reality from the inside out. He begins by telling the listener that life becomes astonishingly simple once they understand this. Every change starts inside, never outside. People spend years chasing results, yet overlook the one formula Neville Goddard insisted never fails. Imagine the end and feel it real. It sounds almost too simple, and that's why so many ignore it. But those who test it even once notice something shift immediately. He often recalls how people complicate manifestation with endless techniques, as if complexity made it more powerful. But Neville's approach is the opposite, deceptively simple yet deeply transformative. When someone imagines and feels their desired end, they activate the true engine behind creation. This is the core of the law of assumption, the quiet mechanism shaping every moment of experience. He explains that most people think desire works like a negotiation with the universe. They ask, beg, hope, and wait. But Neville revealed a different path, a path where the person steps directly into the end, occupying the state of the wish fulfilled without asking permission. This is what it means to practice imagine and feel Neville Goddard teachings in daily life. It's not theory, it's identity. He insists that when someone imagines the end but fails to feel it real, the process stays incomplete, like dialing a number but never pressing call. Feeling is what dials in the frequency of the new state. Without it, the image dissolves. With it, the image becomes alive, believable, embodied. This is why Neville said that feeling is the secret, not effort or struggle. He often shares a simple example. Imagine receiving a message, confirming the exact thing you want. Not vague, not symbolic, literal, and then feel the relief, the warmth, the gratitude of having it. This tiny act plants a powerful seed. Even beginners who try this once are stunned at how quickly outer circumstances begin to shift, because imagination creates reality when fused with emotion. He talks about how children naturally do this without realizing it. They imagine with complete involvement, and their whole body participates in the scene. Adults lose this ability because they overthink, analyze, and doubt. Returning to this childlike immersion is the heart of Neville's method, a return to pure creation, where the unseen feels more real than the physical for a moment. He explains that imagining the end doesn't mean forcing positivity or pretending everything is perfect. It means stepping into the feeling of already being who you choose to be. This is what it means to live in the end. And once someone experiences this even briefly, they can never unsee the truth. The inner world is the blueprint, and the outer world is just the printout. He remembers people saying, "But what if I don't know how it will happen?" And he always smiles. That's the beauty. Neville's formula doesn't require knowing the how. In fact, the moment someone tries to control the process, they leave the state. The work is only this. Imagine plus feel. Creation is finished. The rest rearranges itself. He emphasizes that every great change in his own life began with a single moment of inner acceptance, a moment where he moved beyond wishing and into being. And he assures the listener that they already have the capacity to do this. They've already done it many times without realizing it. Now they're learning to do it consciously, deliberately, powerfully. and as he prepares to take them deeper, he hints that understanding the formula is only the beginning. To truly use it, one must understand the true nature of imagination, and why Neville said it is the creative cause of all reality. He begins by reminding the listener that Neville never spoke of imagination as a metaphor or poetic idea. He meant it literally. To him, imagination was the creative cause behind every event, every relationship, every opportunity. Everything a person experiences is first shaped in the invisible realm. This is why Neville insisted that imagination creates reality, and why understanding this shifts the way someone moves through the world. He explains that people often use imagination the wrong way without even noticing. They imagine worst-case scenarios, replay old hurts, forecast disappointment, and rehearse fear. They treat imagination like a problem generator instead of a solution maker. And yet, these same people doubt the law of assumption when it comes to imagining what they actually want. It's ironic, but common. He shares how Neville revealed that imagination alone is not enough. A person can visualize for hours, but if the scene feels hollow, flat, or emotionally distant, nothing takes root. Imagination without feeling is like a seed without soil. It exists, but it cannot grow. This is where feeling is the secret Neville spoke about so passionately. He illustrates with a simple analogy. Imagine planting a seed of mango and expecting grapes. Everyone understands that's impossible. But when people imagine wealth while feeling fear, or imagine love while feeling unworthiness, they're doing the same thing, expecting grapes from a mango seed. Feeling determines the nature of the harvest. He describes how, when someone fuses imagination with emotion, the entire inner world shifts. A vivid scene of the wish fulfilled, felt deeply, creates a state. And in Neville's teachings, the state is everything. The moment someone occupies a state, life begins responding to that state automatically, not because of effort, but because the inner blueprint changed. He recalls a conversation where someone said, "But I can't feel anything," and he gently corrected them. Everyone feels something. Most just feel the wrong things. Worry, doubt, fear, pressure, those are all feelings. The goal is not to manufacture emotion, but to redirect it. Even a soft sense of relief, calm, or "it's done" is enough. Feeling doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be true. He explains that the fusion of imagination and feeling is like electricity meeting a filament. The bulb glows only when both come together. The image is the filament, the feeling is the current. When they meet, something turns on inside the person. They step into a new version of themselves, and reality begins to shape itself around that identity. He also shares how powerful this becomes when practiced consistently. The mind begins to accept the inner scenes as normal, the body begins to respond to the new emotional patterns, and the world begins presenting new opportunities, synchronicities, and relationships that match the state the person now lives in. This is how the wish-fulfilled Neville technique quietly reshapes someone's entire life. He reminds the listener that they already know the truth of this. They've felt it before, those moments when they imagined something and instantly felt the shift, even if the outer world hadn't changed yet. That moment of inner alignment is the proof that the formula works. It's the bridge between the unseen and the seen, already forming beneath the surface. And as he guides them toward the next insight, he hints that most people fail not because they don't imagine, but because they imagine without emotional involvement. And the difference between those two is the difference between a picture and a seed ready to grow. He begins by saying that one of the most common misunderstandings in manifestation is believing that visualization alone will do the work. People close their eyes, see a scene, picture their desire, and think that's enough. But Neville was clear. A scene without emotional involvement has no life in it. It's like looking at a photograph of food when you're hungry. It doesn't nourish you. It doesn't change you. He explains that many people visualize mechanically, as if they're following a script rather than entering a state. They try so hard to get it right that they forget to feel anything at all. The result is a flat image that never roots itself in the subconscious. This is why so many say, "I visualized, but nothing happened." They created a picture, not a seed, and a picture doesn't grow. He shares how Neville often repeated that imagination creates reality, but only when fused with the inner conviction that the scene is happening now. Without feeling, the scene remains in the mind, like a movie playing on a distant screen. There's no embodiment, no internal shift, no assumption, and the law of assumption method only activates when the person becomes the version of themselves who already has what they desire. He describes emotional involvement as the heartbeat of manifestation. Feeling transforms a simple mental picture into a living, breathing inner experience. It's the difference between thinking of a hug and actually feeling someone's arms around you. One is an idea, the other is a state, and manifestation always responds to states. He gives a relatable example. Imagine someone rehearsing a conversation they want to have, maybe asking for a raise or confessing love. If they only think through the words but never feel the courage, confidence, or tenderness behind it, the scene feels artificial. But the moment the emotion enters, the scene becomes real, believable, embodied. The same principle applies to imagining desires. He reminds the listener that emotion doesn't have to be intense. Neville never asked anyone to force extreme joy or excitement. Even a quiet sense of, "this is natural," is powerful enough. Many people overlook this because they think big desires require big emotions. But consistency matters far more than intensity. A calm, steady feeling anchors the state more deeply than fleeting bursts of excitement. He talks about how emotional involvement creates memory in the subconscious. The subconscious mind responds not to logic, but to lived experience, real or imagined. When someone feels their desire, the subconscious records it as a fact. It begins reorganizing one's outer world to match that inner certainty, because the subconscious doesn't distinguish between imagination and physical reality. He points out that visualizing without feeling often leads to frustration because there's no internal shift, no sense of transformation. The person imagines the desire but still feels like the person who doesn't have it. This creates inner tension. It's like stretching a rubber band between two identities. Eventually, the tension snaps back. This is why many people give up. They never actually entered the state. He shares that when people finally discover the power of emotional involvement, everything changes. They stop trying to visualize and begin inhabiting the end. They stop creating pictures and start planting seeds. The moment the feeling enters, the manifestation process becomes organic, natural, inevitable. The shift is immediate, even if the outer results take time to bloom. And as he prepares them for the next insight, he hints that once feeling enters the scene, something extraordinary happens. Imagination gains a new level of power, because feeling is what fuels the state, and the state is where creation already exists. He starts by telling the listener that imagination on its own is like a beautiful car with no fuel, full of potential, but going nowhere. It's feeling that turns the key. Feeling is what animates the scene, what breathes life into the imaginal act. Neville always said that feeling is the secret, not to sound poetic, but because emotion is the one language the subconscious cannot ignore. Emotion transforms imagination from make-believe into creative power. He explains that when someone emotionally inhabits the wish fulfilled, they step into a completely different identity. They're no longer a person who wants something, they become the person who already has it. And this shift is the essence of the law of assumption. The outer world isn't responding to what someone desires, it responds to who they assume themselves to be. When the assumption changes, everything else begins to move. He shares a simple analogy. Imagine putting on a new outfit. Even before stepping outside, the way you stand, move, or speak subtly changes. The outfit doesn't alter your DNA, but it changes how you feel, and that changes everything. In the same way, emotionally wearing the state of the wish fulfilled transforms your inner posture. It's a new outfit for your consciousness, and reality reacts accordingly. He recalls stories of Neville describing states as though they were places, real, tangible, waiting for someone to enter. And he explains that whenever a person imagines with feeling, they shift locations internally. They leave the state of wanting and arrive in the state of having. This is the foundation of live in the end, a principle that quietly shapes every manifestation. He points out that stepping into a state doesn't require hours of meditation or perfect concentration. Sometimes all it takes is a single moment where the feeling clicks into place. A quiet sense of, yes, this is mine. People underestimate these subtle inner confirmations, but they are incredibly powerful. These small emotional shifts can change the entire trajectory of someone's life. He shares how the body responds instantly to emotional involvement. Heart rate softens, shoulders relax, breath deepens. The body doesn't wait for physical evidence, it responds to the state immediately. And this is why the fusion of imagination and feeling, the core of the wish-fulfilled Neville technique, is so transformative. The body believes first, the world follows. He explains that when a person returns to the feeling repeatedly, they deepen the state. The imaginal scene becomes familiar, comfortable, natural. This is when the subconscious begins to treat it as reality. This is why Neville emphasized the naturalness of the state. The more natural the feeling becomes, the faster the outer world reflects it. He talks about how people often fear that they're doing it wrong, but in truth, there is no wrong way to feel something real. Emotion is personal. Some will feel excitement, others feel peace, others feel certainty. What matters is not the type of emotion, but its authenticity. If it feels like the wish fulfilled, it's perfect. The subconscious only cares that the state feels true. He reminds the listener that when they emotionally inhabit the end, they are aligning with a version of themselves that already exists. Neville taught that creation is finished, meaning every version of a person's life exists as a potential state. Stepping into the wish fulfilled is simply choosing the version they prefer, the one where their desire is already realized. And as he leads them toward the next insight, he hints that stepping into the state is just the beginning. Now comes the practical part, choosing a vivid imaginal scene that naturally evokes the feeling of the desire already fulfilled. He begins by explaining that the beauty of Neville's teachings is in their simplicity. You don't need an elaborate movie or a 20-minute scene. You need a moment, a single vivid snapshot of life after the desire is already fulfilled. Something ordinary, natural, and emotionally charged enough to make the state feel real. This is the heart of practicing Imagine and Feel Neville Goddard in a practical, grounded way. He often tells the listener that the most powerful scenes are the smallest ones. A warm hug from someone celebrating your success. A text message saying, "It went through," or "I'm proud of you." The sound of a door closing behind you as you walk into your new home. These tiny moments carry emotional weight. They're simple, but they belong only to the version of you who already has what you want. He reminds them that the goal is not to create a perfect cinematic masterpiece. The goal is to choose a scene so natural and so believable that the feeling flows effortlessly. When Neville taught that imagination creates reality, he wasn't asking people to force something grand. He was teaching them to create the end point, the moment that proves the desire is done. He shares a personal story he loves repeating. Someone trying to manifest financial relief imagined nothing more than their spouse gently placing a paid bill on the table and smiling. That was the scene. No fireworks, no dramatic music, just a simple, ordinary moment that carried emotional truth. Within 2 weeks, unexpected income arrived, exactly enough to transform their situation. That's the quiet power of a well-chosen scene. He explains that clarity is key. The subconscious responds best to scenes that are easy to enter. If someone chooses something too complex, their mind gets distracted trying to manage details. But a short scene, 5 seconds long, is effortless. It becomes a loop, a living memory from a future self. And because it's simple, the emotional involvement sinks deeper. He encourages the listener to choose scenes that naturally evoke the feeling they want. If they want freedom, choose a scene that feels like release. If they want love, choose a scene that feels intimate. If they want success, choose a scene that feels validating. The emotional resonance is what activates the law of assumption method, making the scene more than just a picture. He also explains that it doesn't matter whether the scene includes another person or not. The key is the emotional truth behind it. A moment of relief alone in your room is as powerful as a celebration with others. What matters is that the scene could only happen if your desire were already realized. This is what creates the after effect, the sense that the outcome is behind you. He reminds them that this practice is not about forcing belief. It's about slipping into the feeling of naturalness. When the scene feels ordinary, like something that could genuinely happen, that's when the subconscious begins to accept it. Neville called this the doorway to the state of the wish fulfilled, the place where creation is finished and waiting for your emotional agreement. He suggests that the listener choose one scene today, even if it feels small. Test it. Try it tonight, just before sleep, when the mind is most receptive. See the scene clearly but softly. Let it play like a memory instead of a fantasy, and notice how quickly the inner shift begins. Even a few seconds of genuine involvement can start rearranging things in ways you wouldn't expect. And as he prepares to guide them deeper, he hints that the next step is what truly bridges the unseen to the seen, learning to feel the emotions that confirm the desire as already yours. He begins by saying that once the imaginal scene is chosen, something magical happens. the scene starts pulling emotion out of you. Not forced, not manufactured, but naturally arising. Neville always emphasized that feeling is the bridge, the invisible thread connecting the imaginal act to the physical world. Without emotion, the scene stays suspended in the mind, but with emotion it sinks into the subconscious and begins to take root. He explains that people often misunderstand what feeling means in Neville's teachings. They think they must feel ecstatic or overwhelmed with joy. But Neville never required intensity. He required authenticity, a soft sense of gratitude, a gentle warmth in the chest, a quiet certainty that whispers, "It's done." These subtle emotions are enough to activate the law of assumption method with immense power. He shares a relatable example. Imagine someone receiving a message after long-awaited news. They don't jump around the room screaming. Well, sometimes they do, but that's not the point. More often they exhale, their shoulders drop. Relief washes through their body. That exhale, that profound natural release, is one of the most powerful feelings someone can bring into an imaginal scene. He tells the listener that feeling is not something they create, it's something they allow. When the imaginal scene is chosen well, the emotion rises effortlessly. The role of the practitioner is simply to lean into it, not chase it, not force it, just surrender to it. This surrender is what Neville meant when he said that feeling is the secret behind every shift of consciousness. He describes how emotion turns imagination into embodiment. When someone feels the scene as real, the body responds instantly. Muscles relax, the breath deepens, the heart softens. The body doesn't wait for physical conditions. It believes the state now. This is why Neville said that creation is finished explained through feeling. The body knows before the world shows. He often reminds people that emotion is the language of the subconscious. The subconscious doesn't argue, analyze, or negotiate. It simply accepts what it feels. If the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes familiar, the subconscious adopts it as truth. Once that truth is accepted internally, the external world begins shifting to match it. This is how imagination creates reality, Neville taught. He shares how many people sabotage themselves by trying too hard to force belief. But belief isn't necessary. Feeling is. Belief naturally follows repeated emotional involvement. Just like learning to ride a bike, you don't believe you can until you feel the balance. Feeling leads belief, not the other way around. He encourages the listener to commit to small feelings rather than large theatrical emotions. A gentle sense of yes, a warm spark of gratitude, a calm knowing. These feelings may seem subtle, but they carry immense creative power. They are the internal signature of the state of the wish fulfilled, the emotional code that tells the subconscious, "This is who I am now." He gives a simple exercise. After seeing the imaginal scene for a moment, place one hand over the heart, close the eyes, and breathe deeply. Imagine that the breath itself is pulling the feeling into the body. This anchors the state. It makes the wish fulfilled feel like the most natural thing in the world. The feeling becomes home. And as he transitions, he hints that the real test of mastery comes when the outer world contradicts the inner state. That's when many people give up. Yet that moment is precisely when the inner work matters most. He begins by telling the listener that this is the moment where most people collapse. The moment the outer world shows them the opposite of what they imagined. Bills arrive, messages don't come, doors seem to close. And the first instinct is to panic, to doubt, to undo all the inner work with a single thought. Maybe it's not working. But Neville taught that this moment is not the failure point, it's the turning point. He explains that the outer world is like a mirror reflecting the old state. It doesn't instantly flip the moment the inner state changes. Just as a mirror reflects the previous pose for a fraction of a second, reality often echoes the old assumptions before revealing the new. This delay is not evidence of failure. It is proof that the law of assumption is at work. The shift is happening behind the scenes. He reminds the listener that feeling is the creative force and imagination is the blueprint. When someone practices the wish-fulfilled Neville technique, they plant a seed in consciousness, and seeds don't sprout the moment they're planted. The soil must rearrange itself, roots must grow, the unseen must be formed before the seen appears. So when outer conditions contradict the inner state, it's not a sign to give up, it's a sign to hold steady. He shares a relatable example. Think of turning a ship at sea. When the wheel is turned, the ship doesn't pivot instantly. It continues in the old direction for a moment before gradually shifting course. The imaginal act is the wheel. Physical reality is the ship. The direction has already changed. You simply haven't seen the turn yet. That waiting period is where faith becomes power. He talks about how people often fall back into doubt because they rely on their senses as evidence. But senses only confirm the old story. The inner state is the true cause, the invisible author behind every chapter of life. When the senses contradict the desire, the wise practitioner says, "Perfect." That means the old state is dissolving, and they return to the feeling of the wish fulfilled. He reassures the listener that persistence is not force. Persistence is gentleness. It's returning to the inner state again and again, not with desperation but with quiet confidence. Neville said that the world reflects your state, not your effort. So when the world shows you something unwanted, don't fight it. Don't interpret it. Simply refuse to identify with it. Stay in your chosen state. He shares the story of a woman Neville taught who faced rejection after rejection while imagining her dream fulfilled. Instead of weakening, she smiled each time a door closed. "Another bridge of incidents," she said, and within weeks everything rearranged in her favor in ways she could not have predicted. Her success wasn't luck, it was persistence in the inner state despite external noise. He explains that the emotional reaction to circumstances is the real test. If someone reacts with fear, they return to the old state. But if they maintain the feeling of "it is done," they stabilize the new one. This is where imagination creates reality. Neville goes from theory to embodiment. The outer world is just catching up, nothing more. He emphasizes that the mirror always adjusts. It has no choice. Reality is compelled to reflect the dominant inner state. So the practitioner's job is simple. Keep the internal alignment steady long enough for the outer world to sync with it. Even when things look contradictory, the shift is already in motion. And as he prepares the listener for the next insight, he hints that once this persistence is maintained, early signs begin to appear. Small but undeniable indicators that life is rearranging itself on their behalf. He begins by telling the listener that once they've held the inner state long enough, something subtle but unmistakable starts to happen. Life begins to shift, not always in dramatic, cinematic ways, but through small, surprising, meaningful moments that feel almost like whispers from the universe. Neville called these movements bridges of incident, the early signs that the law of assumption has been activated and the mirror is beginning to adjust. He explains that synchronicities often appear first. A conversation overheard at the perfect moment. A video recommendation that answers a question you silently asked. A person you haven't spoken to in years suddenly reaching out. These events seem random on the surface, but they carry an undeniable sense of relevance. They feel like reality is nudging you, redirecting you, reorganizing itself in subtle alignment with your new state. He shares how unexpected opportunities often follow. They might be small, a chance meeting, a new idea, a sudden insight, but they often become the stepping stones leading directly toward the fulfillment of your desire. People call them coincidences, but once you've practiced the imagine and feel Neville Goddard method long enough, you know these moments are anything but random. They're the first buds on the branch before the fruit appears. He talks about the growing internal shift that's even more significant than external signs, a quiet sense of certainty. You start feeling calmer, more anchored, more aligned. Doubt loses its grip. The old fear dissolves. This sense of inner peace is one of the strongest indicators that the imaginal seed is sprouting. Neville often said that when the feeling of the wish fulfilled becomes natural, manifestation is inevitable. He explains that the early signs sometimes don't look like progress. In fact, they may even look like obstacles, but he reminds the listener that a seed breaking through the soil looks like destruction before it looks like growth. Sometimes old patterns crumble so new ones can form. So a job ending may lead to a better one. A relationship shifting might create space for the right connection. The outer form doesn't matter. The inner state shapes the outcome. He shares a story of someone who imagined a financial breakthrough and, within days, began receiving unexpected refunds, discounts, and small opportunities for extra income. None of them were the final manifestation, but they were clear indications that something had shifted internally. These small wins build momentum, reinforcing the truth that imagination creates reality, and the formula is actively unfolding. He also explains that the more consistently someone returns to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the more these signs increase. It's like tuning a radio. Once the frequency stabilizes, the signal becomes clearer. the subconscious responds faster, the outer world adjusts quicker, and the emotional alignment deepens. This natural acceleration happens without forcing or controlling anything. He reminds the listener to celebrate these early signs, not with desperation, but with gratitude. Gratitude amplifies the state. It reinforces the truth that the desire is already in motion, and even when the signs are small, they're meaningful. They're markers on the path, showing you that the unseen is becoming seen step by step, moment by moment. He talks about how these early movements create a sense of partnership with life. You begin to feel that reality is no longer something happening to you, but something happening with you. There's a quiet companionship between you and your desire, a shared knowing that the outcome is promised. This feeling is one of the greatest gifts of practicing live in the end consistently. And as he leads them toward the next insight, he hints that something even more profound begins to occur once the signs stabilize. Imagining and feeling stop being techniques. They become a natural way of being. He begins by explaining that there comes a point in this journey where the practice stops feeling like a practice. The person no longer sets aside special moments to imagine the end. They simply are the version of themselves who already has what they want. This is deep embodiment, the point where imagination creates reality. Neville teachings stop being concepts and start becoming a lived experience, woven into every breath and every thought. He says that when embodiment settles in, the state of the wish fulfilled becomes the person's emotional home. They don't have to remind themselves to feel it. The feeling rises naturally, like muscle memory of the soul. The inner shift is so complete that doubts and old patterns lose their authority. And this is when the outer world begins to change rapidly, because the subconscious finally has a stable blueprint to follow. He shares that deep embodiment often shows up in subtle ways. Someone reacts differently to situations that used to stress them. They speak with more confidence, they move with more ease. They make decisions from the version of themselves that has already crossed the bridge, not the version still waiting for permission. This identity shift is the true essence of the law of assumption, where the inner state leads and the outer follows. He gives an example. Imagine someone who used to panic about money. Before embodiment, they would constantly check accounts, worry about bills, and rehearse fear. But after embodying abundance, those old reactions fade, not because their bank account changed first, but because they did. They start acting from a quiet certainty, and life responds with opportunities, solutions, and synchronicities that match that new state. He reminds the listener that embodiment doesn't require perfection. Some people think they must feel the wish fulfilled 24/7, but Neville never taught that. What matters is the dominant state, the place you return to again and again throughout the day. Just like gravity, the dominant state pulls everything else into alignment. Even if the mind wanders, as long as you come home to the feeling, the state remains alive. He explains that when imagining and feeling become natural, the person no longer questions whether the desire is coming. They know. There is no urgency, no forcing, no chasing. The sense of already done becomes so normal that the desire loses its emotional charge. This neutrality is powerful. It means the subconscious now accepts the new identity completely. He says that at this stage, the person begins noticing that life feels smoother. They attract people, opportunities, and timing that fit the new state effortlessly. What used to feel like obstacles now feel like stepping stones. What used to feel like coincidences now feel like confirmation. Reality becomes cooperative because the inner author is writing from clarity, not doubt. He speaks of a quiet confidence that settles in, not arrogance, but alignment. A deep knowing that the inner world is the true cause of everything seen. This knowing transforms how someone carries themselves, speaks, chooses, and responds. They become the embodiment of Neville's core teaching. Feeling is the secret, not effort. He emphasizes that deep embodiment is the point where the method dissolves. You no longer think, I am doing the technique. You simply feel the end as your natural state. And because you live in the end, the world has no choice but to meet you there. This is the moment where the desire stops being a desire and becomes an identity. And as he leads the listener to the final insight, he hints that all of this circles back to one truth. When imagination and feeling unite, nothing is withheld. The power lies in mastering the formula. He begins by reminding the listener that everything they've learned so far leads back to one simple, powerful formula: imagine plus feel. These two elements are the heart of Neville's teachings, the engine behind the law of assumption, and the reason why some people manifest with ease while others struggle. When a person unites imagination with feeling, they step into the creative center of their reality, the place where nothing is withheld. He explains that imagination provides the blueprint, the inner architecture of the desired life. It sketches the end scene, defines the identity, and sets the emotional tone. But imagination alone is like a map with no traveler. Feeling is what activates the journey. Feeling is the bridge, the signal, the energetic signature that tells the subconscious, this is who I am now. Without feeling, the blueprint stays on the table. He shares that when someone truly understands this formula, they stop looking outside for signs of progress. They stop waiting for confirmation. They stop comparing themselves to others. Instead, they return inward again and again to the state of the wish fulfilled. This return is not a chore. It becomes a joy, a relief, a homecoming. It's the inner sanctuary where the truth of creation is finished, becomes real. He talks about how powerful it is to master the emotional tone of the end. Not the details, not the path, not the logistics, just the feeling. Neville said that the world is a mirror reflecting your state, and when your emotional state is aligned with the wish fulfilled, the mirror has no choice. It bends, rearranges, shifts, and reshapes itself to match your inner assumption. This is why imagination creates reality. Neville's teachings remain timeless. He shares an example. Imagine wanting love. If someone imagines a partner but feels lonely, they maintain the state of lack. But if they imagine a simple scene, perhaps a warm hand intertwined with theirs, and allow themselves to feel cherished, chosen, and safe, the state shifts instantly. In that moment, they become the version of themselves who is loved. The world mirrors that state soon enough. He emphasizes that mastery doesn't mean never slipping. Everyone slips. Everyone has moments of doubt. The difference is that the master returns quickly to the state of the end. They don't spiral. They don't argue with circumstances. They don't feed the old story. They choose again. And each time they choose again, the new state grows stronger, more stable, more deeply embodied. He explains that once a person masters the formula, the desire stops feeling like something out there. It becomes an extension of their identity. They don't chase it because they are it. They don't worry about how it will happen because it's already done internally. This inner certainty is the magnetic force that reshapes circumstances. It's the reason why the wish fulfilled feels effortless once embodied. He reminds the listener that Neville never taught effort, struggle, or striving. He taught simplicity. He taught softness. He taught the power of assuming the state through imagination and feeling. And once someone experiences even a glimpse of living in the end, they realize that this formula is not only effective, it is liberating. It frees them from relying on external validation. He tells the listener that nothing is withheld from the one who masters this formula, because the formula aligns them with the highest truth. They are the operant power. They are the creator of their experience. They are the one shaping every outcome through inner alignment. And once they embody this, creation doesn't just respond, it cooperates, accelerates, and magnifies. And as he brings the reader gently forward, he hints that now that the journey is complete, something new is about to begin. An invitation to apply the formula, to embody it, and to step into a life shaped from within. Before you step away from this video, take a moment to notice how different you feel. Not because something outside changed yet, but because you shifted inside. And that inner shift is everything. If you truly want this teaching to work for you, don't just understand it, apply it. Tonight before sleep, choose your scene. Feel it real. Let the state become natural. What would your life look like if you lived from the end for the next 7 days? Ask yourself, what assumptions have I been carrying without noticing? What state have I been returning to on autopilot? And most importantly, what would change if I finally decided to imagine and feel the version of me I've always wanted to become? Reality is waiting for your answer. The door opens the moment you step into the state. If this message opened something inside you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. There's so much more for us to explore together, and I don't want you to miss a single moment of the transformation that's already beginning.